Okay, so let's talk about vectors. We want to look at vectors. What is a vector? A vector is a mathematical expression that describes movement between 2 points. So if you want to describe how you are going to move from one point to another using numbers, right? Such a description is known as a vector. So a vector is using numbers to describe how you move from one point to another. Now, this is how you denote a vector, right? If your first point is A and you're moving to B, you write A, B and draw an arrow, right? The arrow shows movement from A to B, right? So this is how you denote a vector, right? So vector AB describes the movement from point A to point B, right? If you're at point A and point B, you're trying to figure out, hey, how do I move? How do I get there? How do I use numbers to describe this here, this movement there? Right, so let's look at column vectors. There are different ways in which you can have vector expressions, and one of them is representing vectors as a column consisting of two numbers, right? So a column vector has two numbers, and we're just going to refer to those numbers as x and y, right? These will be real numbers, right? Perhaps 2, 3, minus 1 and 7, etc., right? Any pair of numbers. So if vector AB will have two numbers x and y. So for example, we can have a vector BC having two numbers 4, 2, right? 4, 2 is a full description of how you're moving from B to C. Believe it or not, these two numbers are a complete description of how you move from B and get to C. Now, for you to make sense of these two numbers and how they can describe movement between 2 points, you need to understand that there are two reference directions, right? The first direction, I'm going to call it the x direction, right? So the first number, right, is talking about steps in the x direction, right? So the x direction means right or left, right? So if the number is positive, it means you're moving right. If the number is negative, it means you're moving left. So in this case here for our BC, we had a positive 4. So this means 4 steps to the right, because it's positive, right? The second direction is what we would call the y direction, right? This describes movement up or down. So this describes movement up or down. So if the number is positive, it means you're moving up. If the number is negative, it means you're moving down. Now in our example here, the number here was positive, so this describes 2 steps up. So if you want to move from B to C, first move 4 steps to the right and then move 2 steps upwards. That's what this means. It means move 4 steps to the right and 2 steps upwards. That's how you go from your B to your C. So if we look at the examples here, vector AB is going to consist of 4 steps, right? Remember, you always start with the x direction, right or left. So 4 steps right, that's positive, and 3 steps up, that's also positive. So the vector AB is the vector for 3. And then here we have the vector CD, right? In the x direction, right, we have 5 steps right, so that's positive. But then in the y direction, we have 2 steps down, that's negative. So for you to move from C to D, you move 5 steps to the right and 2 steps down. That's your vector CD expressed as a column vector. Then we have the vector EF, movement from E to F, right? If you're going to move from E to F, you're going to move 5 steps left and 4 steps down. So because it's left, I put a negative, and because it's down, I put a negative. So it's minus 5, minus 4. The vector EF is minus 5, minus 4, showing you 5 steps to the left and 4 steps downwards. We have a vector GH now. The vector GH is 3 steps to the left and 2 steps upwards. So because we're moving to the left, that's a negative, and because we're moving upwards for the y direction, that's a positive. So it's minus 3, 2. That is our vector GH. Okay, last we have this vector here, IJ, right? IJ consists of movement only in the x direction. There's no movement up or down, so there's no movement in the y direction, right? So for the x direction, we're moving 6 steps right, and then there's no movement in the y direction, so we just put a 0 for the y direction. Our IJ is the vector 6, 0. The vector KL now represents no movement left or right, so there's no movement in the x direction. We put a 0. But then for the y direction, we move downwards 4 steps, so that's going to be minus 4. So your movement from K to L is 0, minus 4. So those are simple column vectors.